Today, I'm just going to talk about the connections that we create between home and school. I dealt with mostly REAEL students, so mine tended to be across oceans and with host families. But this is going to be a little bit different today. Um, when kids are coming in, we have to very quickly, we're dealing with kids from different cultural backgrounds, and we need to make the adjustments necessary to make sure that they're completely engaged and they achieve as much as they can. One of the things we have to do is in the process of bringing them in, interview them, find out what are their expectations, what are the things that they want to accomplish. Are the families sending them over here with the intention of them going to an Ivy League? By the way, if they are, I need to know whether the kids invested in that or just mom and dad are. I'm gonna need to kind of analyze their communication styles a little bit. When kids come in, there's a euphoria. There's kind of a bounce and that whole thing. But there's also an intimidation that happens a lot of times with REALs where they're going to have a tendency to kind of sit back and watch. You kind of have to figure out how they're communicating as you're going along and have to process as you're going through. We also need to get understand the different perceptions they're going to have of us. Some kids are going to love you pushing them hard and driving them in a direction to go be successful. Other kids are going to feel intimidated by that, and you have to kind of figure out what they're seeing where they're sitting in the classroom. Um, we need to gain some cultural competence. We need to actually study the kids a little bit. When you get kids in from China, I used to ask the question, I said, "Where are you from?" They'd say China. I'm like, "No, no, what city?" And that would give me some background, and I'd say, "Okay, now when in your city, how tall is the building you live in? How many stories?" And they would tell me, and I'd say, "Okay, what floor do you live on? Do you go to school just down the street? How long does it take you to get to school? Or do you go away for the whole week and study at a boarding school?" That information was invaluable as we go through. Get a kid from Brazil coming from the favela. They don't even want to go on Google Earth and see a picture of their house because that might actually be embarrassing to see have the kids sitting where we're at, seeing their place in Brazil. That was a quick lesson I had to learn. That competency of just going in and asking more and more questions, and then storing that information in your head for your future opportunities. Um, we have to in the class when they come into class, we want to make sure that we give them some like you're coming in. First thing, I need to know your name. So I'm gonna say to you, write your name on your table. Actually, if you're coming from a place where the language set or the character set is different, I put your name in English and in your language. In my school, I would take a picture of them. I would build a Quizlet for all the other teachers with the name of the child, picture of them, so they could actually quickly get the names right because getting their names right is a big deal with those kids. The next thing is I would have them work with different people. Today you're going to work with this one because this one's going to help you go in this direction. And I wouldn't tell them, but I'd say I'd move them over here and have them work with somebody else who could help them get a little bit better at the things that they needed to get to. And then I would also very much emphasize the fact that the desk is not the only place to learn. We're going to use the entire classroom. We're going to use the entire campus when necessary and when possible. We're going to get off campus and go learn because for a lot of these kids, we talk really fast. They need things to be slowed down, or they need to go out and actually do things. A little bit more experiential learning will help them. We're going to celebrate their diversity, but we're not going to necessarily delineate. We're not going to have Brazilian History Month. We're actually going to teach, and if it fits in the history, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about Brazilian independence. We're going to talk about the Qin Dynasty. We're going to talk about the different things that have happened throughout Japanese history. When they fit in the curriculum, we're going to teach both sides of the story, though. Teaching World War II with German, Turkish, Japanese, Chinese, Korean, and Vietnamese students in the same classroom was always a challenge because you had to cover all of the bases there, and students usually got the idea by the time we were done. Um, I'm gonna be we're gonna use a lot of pragmatics where I'm gonna have them. I have to figure out how they talk to each other. If I have a kid who sits on the side and never really engages, I need to find out how much language competency they have in their own language. So I mean, encourage them occasionally when we get a chance to talk to somebody who does speak their language and watch closely, listen closely. They're going to give you hints. Um, if they're excited, they're engaged, and the other person's feeding back, that tells you that they've got actually a pretty decent concept of that. I remember now, if you don't have the kids on campus, I used to have the thing where I would say, "Hey, call grandma," and I would listen to the call, or I'd listen to the mom, and the way they talked to the mom, I could tell an awful lot about how engaged they were just by listening and watching them because they actually give you quite a bit of hint on how much competency they have. We're gonna do daily check-ins. I'm at my notes set. I'm gonna actually ask them to ask questions. I'm gonna be feeding back to them constantly, especially my students with special needs. I mean, that one is not there's not even an option. You have to put things down, and I have to be responding to you. We're going to celebrate every success. Very, very, very minimally are we ever going to be doing negatives in those classes. And we're going to provide them with a quiet space where they can work and concentrate and get their brain quiet because being in another country, trying to learn in a different language is a loud process inside the head of anybody. Um, my classroom routines be very, very consistent, be predictable. Boardwalk quiz, beginning of the day. We're going to do our certain things during the time. We are going to vary to keep it kind of spiced up on they're engaged, but I don't want to ever get so far out of the lane without giving them some warning because for them, this is all new anyway. We don't want to throw too much at them. The funds of knowledge, every kid's coming in different. These three kids were from Brazil. They weren't coming here necessarily to get a high-end education. They wanted to study hard. They were actually good students, but they wanted the experience. They had never seen snow in their lives. We drove them to the snow and we played in the snow and made snow angels. That was vital for them. Now they're a lawyer, an engineer, and a teacher. And they were the first in their families, for all of them to go out, get out of, and go to college. Strategies for fostering the community relationship. Number one thing is we had to produce a quality education product. We had to make sure that we were giving them something good. We were going to be consistent but fair, and we needed to provide some orientation materials using the stuff that we had learned before to help students feel prepared when they came into our classroom. Last thing are the intentional strategies for the families of ELLs. We're going to create a class website with pictures and videos. We're going to give parents the access to the Google Classroom, and we're going to give live streaming options to kids if they would like to show their parents what they're doing, especially ones that are overseas, because they need to see what their child's actually accomplishing. And the last thing here is we just need to get to know our community, bring in experts, pastors. We bring in Bible teachers who could help kids in their own language to experience this stuff for the very first time. Thank you.